How you going? So we've got the Lesbian Action Group and the Women's Rights Network in the cafe today to talk about the upcoming march with Restore. But when we were at the last march, do you want to talk about this interview we did with this woman?
She was brilliant. She was savvy, smart, and she's been there before, done it all before, and she just tells it how it is. So it's best coming from her.
Yep. So we'll start with this, and then once this is gone, we'll get the chat going for tonight. So this was taken a few weeks ago in Perth.
Why am I here? Because like any woman who's awake, not asleep at the wheel, I'm appalled at what's happened, and I really, as well as what's happening to women, the lack of ability to speak out about it. The free speech has just been so shocking. I just cannot believe how bad it is. So anyway, so I'm here. And there's only one question to ask Julia Gillard.
Can I ask, did you fight for women's rights when you were younger?
Absolutely.
So can you believe you're back in the trench?
I just said to an old bloody warrior friend of mine, I said, who'd have believed it? But this Julia Gillard, everyone's going on about, what she said. There's only one thing we should be asking her. Julia Gillard, what is a woman?
Well,
right?
Apparently it's come out now that the submissions were clearly stating that she'd been warned that this would happen.
Doesn't matter. That was all years ago. It does matter. It does matter because, I know that. But the thing at the end of the day, put her on her spot. What does she think? What is a woman? Right here, right now, Julia. Let's not talk about the past. What is a woman?
Can I ask you another question? I actually think the question is absurd. What is a woman? It's not a question we should have to ask. We've got mothers, we've got grandmothers, we know what a woman is. It's like asking what's the air, what a cloud. There's certain things, need to be defined. It's already freaking defined.
I agree with you. And, never thought I'd see the day would be, what is a woman? It's so ridiculous. I mean, when I was at university, the question used to be, what does a woman want? I don't know if anyone remembers that. Well, oh, that's out the window.
I remember that. Well, what's interesting, they never say, what is a man? That's the question that's never asked. It's always just, what is a woman?
Absolutely, because it's a war on women. But it's also the war on free speech is catching a lot of us, men and women. And you can't have freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of association. I mean, what's wrong with these nutcases, And another thing they said...
You should come on our podcast.
No, they said, this is new. We didn't used to have men sloping in. I can tell you as a lesbian, for about 30, 40 years, we were always throwing men in frocks out of our functions. They were always trying to get in. They're AGPs, transvestic fetishists.
Yeah.
Let's call them what they are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we've heard that from Miss Lister.
Autogynephilia.
AGPs, yeah. But they're really transvestic fetishists.
Freedom to be you. Freedom to be you. Freedom to be me.
Okay, let's get going. So the first person coming in, I think we're still waiting on one, is Sarah. And Sarah, I believe, is from the woman's... Oh, is Sarah from...
Sarah's from the Lesbian Action Group.
Okay, Sarah's from the Lesbian Action Group. Hi, Sarah. How you going? This is Kelly and I'm Michael. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite. I'm just sending something to Belle's email. I'm so sorry about this. Just bear with me, but I'll try and multitask. What would you like to kick off with?
I'm just enjoying hearing the Welsh accent that I never get to hear except when my dad speaks, so it's great to hear it. He sounds like Tom Jones, but it's great hearing you speak. Why don't we start with the question we asked that lady? Do you want to ask it about, can you believe that you're fighting this fight now in 2026 for women's rights that had already been attained, And a lot of it have been taken away, not by blokes, but by women.
I think probably from lesbian perspective, somebody in my early to mid 50s, I didn't have to do, fight for women's rights in the way that the women before me did, but I understand a lot of that and understand the history and know the history and appreciate it. And then there was a degree of homophobia growing up in the 80s and 90s, not so much. And then there was this really fantastic moment, this window, where it was all really good. It was very easy to be who you were and say that you were a lesbian in the workplace, even though I was, a lot younger and more junior in my work and all that kind of stuff. It was really good. It was really, and we just thought the world was going to stay like that forever. And now it's just turned completely on its head. And we're fighting a new wave of women's rights being lost and a new wave of homophobia, because you can't really be a woman anymore and you can't really be a lesbian anymore, or gay man even. So we are as shocked as everyone else, really. They always say that lesbians are the canaries in the coal mine. We've had it sort of particularly bad in some ways, really compounded, but because you've got being female and you've also got being homosexual, and that none of that goes well with the new TQ cult. So lesbian spaces started to disappear about 20 years ago. There was no lesbian boundaries anymore. Lesbians have gone underground or not gone anywhere really, sort of staying at home or just socializing in other people's houses, but certainly not organizing public events, because in this country, as you know from the Lag case, you can't organize a public event and advertise it in this country and say it's just for lesbians, because you have to, under the Sex Discrimination Act, according to the Australian Human Rights Commission, you have to admit men who say they are a lesbian. It's extraordinary. I mean, growing up,
I'm sorry to laugh, but it sounds, what you said sounds like Monty Python is in charge.
Exactly right. If anyone had said to me in the I've just sent the wrong link to someone now, that was, bear with me. If I said to someone in the or if someone had said to me in the 80s, 90s, or whenever, back when I was younger and all that kind of stuff, males will be taking over your spaces because they've demanded to be lesbians, the law will have recognized them, everybody's going to bow down to it, and therefore you're just going to have to suck it up.
And we would have had men in women's sports as well. So like in the Olympics, how we saw in the boxing. And we also saw a clip just recently, a couple of the NBA stars, the male NBA stars, have come out and said that...
I think that's the WNBA has said that anyone can apply now, including men. And so two basketballers, very famous, very competent basketballers, are applying, but I think they're doing it to sort of challenge it. It's a protest.
Yeah, I think the WNBA they've been locked in a boardroom for about 8 days or something now, trying to decide what a woman is and how to navigate this problem. And in the meantime, it's because the two very successful male basketball players have come out and said they're going to put themselves forward for the female league. They don't know what to do with themselves because they're inclusive. And Sophie Cunningham, who said that the brilliant WNBA basketball player, she came out about 3-4 weeks ago, which is what started all of this. She said she has got no problem with anyone, she loves everyone, but sports is for girls. She wants to protect young girls in the league, on the court, and in the locker room, sort of thing. And so it's all gone off. And so in some ways, it has to be America that really pushes this domino over first, because they exported a lot of this problem. And the sports thing there is much bigger. Obviously, it's a massive multi-billion-dollar industry, all of the sports there. And so if they can crack it in America through the sports topic, then there is a pretty good chance that domino will start to fall elsewhere there and then here as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's I was going to play a rather, actually I won't, because there's so many people being cancelled over this. It's ridiculous. It's like a form of self-censorship now, because it's almost like people don't know what to say. But I've been cancelled myself as a playwright, so I'm free to say whatever I want, because you cancel me twice, I pop back into being. But people are actually getting to a point now. That's why there's a lot of mature people in these protests, because what are you going to do? They're, you know, we're almost retired. You can't threaten our jobs. You can't take our house. But this is what they're doing, and getting conformity everywhere. What sort of support are you getting from the public?
It depends where you are as a person on the street, I suppose, about raising this in public. I think I suppose, like, if you're on the street with signs and doing a little bit of a rally and a speak out, even on a small scale, you get a real mixture. Over the last few years, it's really changed from people going, "Oh, this isn't a problem," or "This will never become a problem in law." And now people are going, "Shit," like they know it's a problem. So there's that. I think, and it also depends where you are in terms of city. Like Melbourne is a lot more woke and a lot less willing to engage in the conversation around this stuff. But even that seems to be changing now as well. What else? The conversations. But I mean, I lost quite a lot of friends over this in the beginning of starting to have more public conversations and be uncomfortable with a lot of things I was seeing and experiencing and hearing. And just so many people just latched onto this as being progressive, and the way that the world was going, and you get on board or you're a bigot and all of that sort of thing. So I lost quite a lot of gay friends, and then of course you meet new friends who just have this point of view. So I think it's starting to shift, but people have not just been cancelled; they've been made out to be utter pariahs for having concerns about various aspects of this ideology. So, but in terms of lag specifically, we get a real mixture of things that come into the email box. So you get rants from all kinds of fairly deranged activists being really nasty and unhinged, through to all sorts of people who are really, really supportive and will give quite generous donations towards court fees when we've needed them. So it's a real funny mixture. And what we also find is that there are people who are more kind of on the right side of politics, who we are rubbing shoulders with in a way that sort of more left-leaning people would have never seen ourselves doing some time ago. But here we are. It's a funny times, really.
Yeah.
Sarah, how has the emphasis on gender identity affected women and lesbians in particular to organise, meet and advocate in spaces that prioritise biological sex?
I'm really sorry, Kelly. Just give me 1 second. Bella's saying she can't get in, and I'm just trying again. I don't know what the problem is. Just bear with.
Just tell her to just keep clicking, say yes to everything, and she has to get in through Facebook or Google. That's how it does. But just say yes to using camera, yes to using microphone, and then just keep clicking, and eventually you should see us. Yeah.
Okay, just give me 1 sec. Okay. You're not able to dial anybody in on this app by the look of it, are you?
No, we can send her another link if we give her an email or something. This should be on Rumble. I don't know why. We're having a lot of strange things happening lately. Like we did set this up on Rumble and it's not there now. So it's starting on Rumble now. There's
all right. Yeah.
Sarah, you've got the rally on the weekend in Sydney. Is it anywhere else in Australia?
No, it's just in Sydney on Sunday. It's at Martin Place. It's probably going to be quite well attended. I mean, some of the others have been as well. It's great to see those happening across the country, and hopefully this one will be pretty big. So yes, very much looking forward to that.
And one of the problems you face with marches and protests now is sort of protest fatigue. People have been protesting so much, and people seem to be sort of inundated with issues coming from everywhere. But Can we get in? And I'll ask this of Kelly too. What is actually the importance of women's spaces? Let's start with just the toilets. Why having the toilets that are just for biological women important? And that's to either of you two.
I mean, I think like you'll hear you'll have heard lots of women and men saying women's safety, privacy, and dignity. That's the kind of bottom line. But when you really stop and think as a woman what that means, being in a fairly intimate, away from everywhere else bathroom space, and there's a man in there, you know it doesn't feel right. You know it is absolutely 100% your instinct that this is not right. And the man doesn't need to be doing anything dangerous. It's just not right. It's uncomfortable. You don't want it. And, you know, we've been brought up for decades with going in, you know, there's a social contract where women's bathrooms are for women and men's are for men. But for women, it's obvious we need to feel safer. It's obvious we have other biological things going on where we need bathrooms to be more than just run in, have a pee and nip back out. You know, sometimes we've got to go and deal with periods and all of that sort of side of things, which is really no fun whatsoever. So, you know, a man who wanders in accidentally and then you boot them out, no problem. But a man who's in there having a great time, enjoying himself, pretending that he's just having a pee is a no-no. We don't want them in there. So, you know, we just don't want them in there. And beyond saying we don't want them, I don't think we have to sort of pathologize it and go into lots and lots of
detail
around and detail.
I think what you said is perfect. I think what you said is perfect.
We don't want you in there. So how about you listen and get out and don't come in the first place?
Yeah.
We taught about boundaries. You know, having healthy boundaries and. The little logo, you know, to say that it's a women's toilet is enough to say that, you know, women need that space to themselves. And like you said, Sarah, we don't have to go into great detail about why. We all know why. We shouldn't have to continually explain ourselves about this.
Yeah,
I mean, we know what it is and we know what a man is and we know where we are welcome and where we're not welcome. And if men don't respect that space for women, I have no problem with standing up for myself and any other women and girls who are in the toilet at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
We'll bring Belle in now. We bring Belle in. Hey, Belle, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Belle.
Hi, guys. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. How you going?
Hi.
So we just asked the question, which is an obvious question. I don't think you guys have to justify it anyway, but it's just for the interview. Is asking why are women's spaces so important, you know, from including women's sports. But say the toilet, why is the toilet from a woman's point of view so important to have a place for only biological women?
Yeah, first of all, there are just things that women go through that men do not go through. In the same way that there are things that men go through that women do not go through. And we just want a basic bit of separation, a bit of space of our own, to be able to do those things and not have to worry about people who don't understand, who are maybe engaging in some kind of voyeurism, people who do not experience the things that we experience, coming in and intruding on that space. And that's like you guys were saying, it's pretty basic stuff, isn't it? You know, people they don't consent to having other people in their spaces. It's really simple.
Can I just say, from a man's point of view, this is how men see female toilets, a mysterious place that's sacred for women. And men, we don't do anything. I mean, there's a few gay guys that do, but most men, as soon as we enter the toilet, we shut up. We don't talk. We don't look at each other. We get in, we do it, we get out. That's it.
Right.
It's not a social gathering. It's nothing. It's just like get in, get out, and then we start talking. Well, we know that women have to wait for cubicles. They have to do this. So it's more of a social place and a safe place for doing makeup. And we get that. If we go to a bar with women, the two girls go to the bar, we know, okay, let's get a drink. It could be a while. And we're okay with that because it's sacred. And we learned that in grade 1 when we're playing kiss chasing, and that's Barleys. You can't go in. You You know, and I know it sounds silly, but it teaches you this is it. You don't go in there, boys. And
it's
I don't
great
see
that
why
you know
we're
that.
fighting this now.
Exactly. It's crazy that we're here. But you're right. It's the women's bathroom. It's also just a place where you can go and take a break. You know, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, if somebody, or worst case scenario, somebody's following you around, you can go in there, take a break, maybe talk to some other women, tell them what's going on, right? You've got a space of your own. It's really important in that respect.
Well said, Bill. Yeah, it's always been a safe space for us to go and take time out.
Yes.
And just to finish the thing too, we also know that there are men in the community, not all men, but there is a portion of men who are creeps. And we can't have them in there. That's it. I'm not saying all trans men or trans women are creeps, but there is a healthy portion or an unhealthy portion that will basically exploit this loophole. And as blokes, we know this.
Yeah,
you know?
It's unfortunate, but it's just reality. And everybody knows. And I don't know why we're all pretending, or why a certain amount of people are pretending to not know that, because we all do.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're doing this to women today? Where do you think it's come from?
Oh gosh, I think there's a number of different strains that have sort of all coalesced at the same time. I mean, some people will say, oh, it's sort of revenge for Me Too. It's this sort of pushback against women saying, we wanted our own space. We didn't want you guys intruding upon us, saying these things to us. And so there's a bit of a pushback, and maybe even potentially a bit of guilt from some women for feeling like maybe they went too far, which I would not agree with when you're just saying, please don't harass us, but maybe a bit of guilt for women. And there's a bit of an opportunity there for men to sort of say, oh, well, we'll guilt you out a bit and say, yeah, you went too far. And then they'll push back on that. There's that element of it. There is also, I think, just at this day and age, we have a bit of a mental health crisis. It's taking on all kinds of different aspects. And I think that is manifesting in this trans identification as well. You've got these two things happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The other thing is sport. I've got a friend here, Forsh. He's a coach for his daughter's team, and but they're now having trouble because there's so many trans. That's his daughter there. G'day, Forsh. There's so many trans kids in the female sports or identify as girls that their girls cannot compete. And I see that as the girls are striving for something. And you can't compete against a bloke. You just can't do it. No, I'm sorry, you just can't. Yeah. And so you dispirit the girls.
The crazy thing about the sports topic in this country is that it is the easiest part of the current Sex Discrimination Act law to sidestep having boys forcing their way or men forcing their way into female sports, because there's a section in there, was it section 40 or section 42, that's called sport, and you can very easily sidestep this issue. What's happened is ACON, the AIDS Council of New South Wales, as they used to champion through the AIDS epidemic, now really a trans rights lobby, very well funded, $15 million a year from the government. They've gone round with their Pride in Sport campaign to all of the sporting bodies and encourage them to be inclusive. And it's like the Sex Discrimination Act and the ability to sidestep all of that in the law for sport doesn't exist. So you've just got these, wannabe progressive, kind people in some of this, like AFL or whatever it might be. And even in amateur sort of amateur and community sort of sport, they're just bought into all of this inclusion stuff, but they don't need to, because under the law as it stands, even though the SDA is broken, as the SDA stands today, you don't have to be forced to include boys in girls sport. So this is just a failure of leadership and cowardness. Some people might say, well, I'm just doing the right thing. I want to be inclusive. Well, look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, just have some common sense. inviting boys to play against girls is not being kind. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there's one netballer I saw. He's about 6 foot something, and I saw he was fighting some Asian team. They were hanging off him like Christmas ornaments, and and I just feel sorry. Look, to him, I understand, mate. You're going through something. I get it. It might be very painful, but all these girls here with numbers have fought really hard to be in this team, and they have dreams, and they want to progress these dreams. And you're coming along, going, no matter how hard you train, how hard you work, I'm going to beat you. You don't stand a chance against me. That's just not fair. And fair is in our national anthem. We pride ourselves to the world. Advance Australia fair. This is not fair. As simple as that, And
it's not fair. And they're being aided and abetted, in all sort of parts of society at the moment, whether it's virtue signaling politicians or in some regards the judiciary, but everywhere they are being aided and abetted, and it's actually time to say no now. This has to stop.
Yeah, no is the best way. The other thing that it's very easy to blame the men coming in, but a lot of this is being pushed by women. I mean, even Julia Gillard is the one that did sign the first law into place, and I saw her being interviewed recently. Said we weren't aware that this would happen. No one told us. But then I saw another woman come out and said, actually, the submissions were full of this. They were absolutely warned about this, and they ignored them. So that's what I like. Even in the case the big case that happened recently, the guy or the woman goes to court, surrounded by women, defiantly defending him.
Yeah.
But they're taking away their own rights. That's what I don't understand. It's like empathy. It's just what they're calling suicidal empathy. It's like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
And it's also like a cognitive dissonance. I think it's women who actually have been very fortunate enough not to have had anything bad happen to them in their lives. They haven't been close to the sort of men that they are defending outside of defending them in a theoretical context, like in court, theoretical, isn't it? You're not directly impacted. You're just a mouthpiece for your client. It's very theoretical.
They don't know how valuable it is. They don't know what they're giving away.
Yes, I really do think it's a disconnect between this looking through things in a theoretical, feel-good, slightly suicidal, empathetic kind of way versus the actual reality of what it's like dealing with some of these people in real life and what they are, the damage they're doing in real life. They seem to be removed from it. That's kind of the best way I can explain it, really.
Do you think we might not have been here? Sorry, might not have been here if we could have discussions. Like, there doesn't seem to be any way to actually have just healthy debates. It's just sort of been thrust upon us. I feel like there's a new morality being laminated across our common sense. And what we're having here is common sense things. Do you think this is a part of it? And maybe that's the way going forward of just having conversations,
Very much so. And I think what tends to happen is organizations or governments like the Australian government, they tend to buy into these things. It all seems very simple and well-meaning to start out with. And then once they have, and they start to realize that the consequences are actually quite extraordinary, then they don't want to backtrack because it's too embarrassing and there's too much responsibility there. So you just get stuck in this place where they don't want to have a conversation about it at all. They shut it all down, and you never have these really complicated and important conversations that we're trying to have now, and that you're right, people deserve to have. They're really important.
So there was also in the trans rights movement, there was also a deliberate policy of no debate. So you can sort of trace that back, 10 or more years. But it was, there's no debate. This is settled science, and so that no debate thing, putting that iron curtain down, extended through to everything. We haven't been allowed to have these conversations because it was a deliberate stance of no debate, and if you raised it, you got your head taken off.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, there's people here in the comments saying Megan and Mog, we're being censored. So there is no discussions anymore. And you're right, it's about everything. We don't have these great debates even on our social media. It's like one side or the other, and that's not going to fix anything. And to stay from our perspective, I got nothing against trans. If you feel you're in the wrong body and you want to make that journey, I realize it's a hard, arduous journey. I wish you the best with it. And the fact that we've got the medical ability to help you with that, this is where we are. But I do have some fears that it's going into schools too early and all this other stuff really bothers me. But if you're in your 20s and you really feel you need to do this, I have a trans friend who's done the journey 30 years ago. She had every week she had to go see a psychologist. They wouldn't let her change until they were completely convinced that she was on the right path. But you don't, I think one of you said it today, it's not a human right to be invited to every party or something like that, one of the lawyers said. And so the lesbian or women are having their own space. Great that you've changed, but you're not invited to the party. This is for biological women. And you women, I'm sorry, you go through a lot more stuff than men. And most men are aware of that. So having your own space is like,
we can't be in a situation where the law of the land is forcing women to seek permission from a handful of unelected bureaucrats down at the Australian Human Rights Commission, begging for permission to get together as just women or to open a business or a gym of any sort. Like Sal Grover was just, not that she didn't even know she needed an exemption or what the SDA was at the time, but women are expected to know about the Sex Discrimination Act, then they're expected to apply for an exemption. You won't get it. There are no live exemptions to the Sex Discrimination Act on the AHRC website today, including for domestic violence refugees. So you're supposed to know all of that stuff as an ordinary citizen in the street. You won't get it anyway. Why should we be begging a handful of unelected bureaucrats in the Australian Human Rights Commission for women to get together, or men for that matter, by ourselves as grown adults? The law, the SDA is broken. We shouldn't have to have exemptions, but that was working for a while. But now they don't want to give exemptions because they're on the side of gender identity ideology. They do think it's a human right to be invited to the party. They do think it's a human right for men to be able to come to a pole dancing studio that is just set up for women to come in and exercise in, like gnomes in the Gold Coast. So it's absurd. It is utterly absurd that they're trying to force people to accept this ideology through a broken law in our country, an exemption process that, quite frankly, is non-existent. So I can talk about LAG's exemption if you want, just briefly, and then maybe I'll just hand to Belle if you want to talk about the rally. But so LAG applied for an exemption in 2023. They put it out to public consultation. Even that needs to stop. I would like to get rid of the AHRC altogether tomorrow. But if they hang around and we still have to give them $40 million a year, why should there be a public consultation option? So a group of adult lesbians wanted to get together in a $90 million Pride Centre in Victoria on International Lesbian Day. And they applied for the exemption. The AHRC put it out to public consultation. The first round involved Equality Australia and 14 other activist organisations working against us. We still got the numbers. We still had Trans Justice Project and all sorts of others. We still had the numbers. And so we had the public consultation was in LAG's favour. Well, LAG didn't suit the AHRC. So they said they were going to refuse us anyway, and then put it back out to consultation. And even the second round came back. We had the numbers. 99% of the submissions were in LAG's favour. They refused the exemption anyway. It's just
the public are basically on your side from what we've seen. When we did that march in Perth, we've been in marches where the public's not so friendly. All the public were like this. They're all on our side. This has been forced upon us. And now the Labor government is giving all these groups like $2 billion. And I know we want to get to the march, but before we get there, can we talk about the conversion therapy bill of 2026? Because I didn't realize what that was aimed at. So can one of you inform us about this conversion bill?
At a high level, because there's so many tentacles of this, it's not possible to be deep in all of it. But there's a new wave of conversion therapy, but they've inverted it. They've sort of flipped it. So obviously, people know the term conversion therapy and banning that in relation to homosexuality. Good. That doesn't actually happen anymore in this country and many other Western countries, but what they've done now, the activists, they have deemed doctors talking to confused young people who, or maybe adults, but largely young people, obviously, who say that they're confused about their gender or think they're in the wrong body or whatever it might be. If their parents, even their parents or doctors, talking to them to try to stop them going down that path and to try to make them feel comfortable with who they are and, try to push all of that stuff out of their minds that they're seeing on social media and in the school curriculum or extracurricular. That is now considered conversion practice. So even I think it's in Victoria, don't quote me because as I say, I'm not deep in the detail, but I don't know if they've passed it in Victoria, but they were certainly wanting to pass it in Victoria such that parents talking to their children about, you aren't this thing called trans, you aren't this thing called non-binary, you're just Joe or whatever. And, getting them help with that talking therapy and, trying to support them through that without putting them on drugs and doing social transition and all of that other stuff. Now, parents and doctors doing that sort of stuff is considered conversion practice. It is just absolutely beyond the pale, and they want people to be criminalized for it, as if you were actually trying to give a young person electric shock therapy not to be gay any longer. They're trying to equate talking to a kid about you're not trans with that sort of time gone by. It's very scary stuff. It's really scary. It's another very heavy-handed.
One of our podcasters has interviewed a guy from Canada who went to jail because he refused to use the pronouns of his son's pronouns and stuff like this. So this is happening all across the Western world. But yourself, Belle, what are your thoughts on this conversion therapy thing? Do you think there seems to be it's almost like you're not allowed anymore if you're young and you're just naturally gay, because everyone's born this way. So you're born lesbian, you're born gay. Now, instead of just letting you blossom and find out your sexuality for yourself, they're coming along and go, maybe you're not gay. Maybe you're actually in the wrong body and all the danger that goes with that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's the complication. I mean, how does somebody figure out while they're in this delicate stage, usually puberty, how do they figure out if they're just gay and that's, how they want to be and they just want to be comfortable with themselves, or if they really want to transition, which is a very serious path to go down. I think at the moment we have these laws in Queensland, ACT, Victoria, New South Wales, and South Australia. The most current one that I'm aware of has been proposed by the Tasmanian Greens. And so they've proposed a bill, and I'm not sure where that's at the moment, but it's looking like it's across almost every state and territory. And it's not just a matter of saying, oh, a therapist can't say maybe you're not trans. It's really problematizing the conversation that you might have. Well, are you trans or are you not? Let's just explore that, because that conversation that can be perceived by the patient or the patient's parents as some kind of delay. And then before you know it, a doctor has been told, well, we feel like you're practicing conversion therapy by delaying this process of transition. So, and what we know from doctors is that they're getting very nervous about this. And then you have a whole bunch of doctors who will just say, well, then I won't take those kinds of patients. So the doctors who remain are the ones who are most likely to affirm really quickly.
Yeah. Look, I find that terrifying. I mean, the puberty blockers is what they give sex predators in America. and it's very damaging to children. And I just find we're in this bizarre world. Even having this conversation seems to be mental. You know, it's hard. You're trying to stay articulate and nice, but you actually feel like saying, you just want to call out for bullshit. You know, and the thing is, there's 8 billion people on the planet. I'm 60 years old, so I'm to say 2 or 3 generations behind. I don't know. We didn't have sex education. I tell you, sex education for us in school, this really happened. We were about 12, and a nun, all dressed in the regalia, sat before a video screen where there was a projector, and the only thing I remember is she was looking like this at the class, at the boys. And if anyone laughed, she was like, woof, woof. So you just stayed silent, and we were giggling. And it had this thing, I won't be too rude, but it had the back of a young man facing away. It had a sheet over his part, so you just saw his back. And the voice said, sometimes you wake up at night and there'll be a wet patch in the bed. Don't worry about it. Turn over. It'll dry soon. That was it. Now, even though that was our only sex education, those who were gay went on to be gay. Those who were lesbians went on to be lesbians. And the rest of us bred the next generation. We figured out who we liked to fuck, and we did it all ourselves. We didn't need the government helping us at all. We didn't. Humans are very like every other planet. We got sex in the bag.
You certainly don't need the government.
You don't need to identify a woman to know because we're after a woman. Yeah. If you're a bloke and you like women, you don't need to be told what a woman is. You know what it is. You know, so this is the nonsense that I struggle with. Sorry, Belle, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, it's all good. Go on.
No, that's it. To me, this is like crazy town shit. You know what I mean? What are you doing? Just let the kids be kids. Let them figure it out for themselves. And if they need assistance as they hit their 20s, no problem. Let's help you.
And this comment on the screen now, there's no long-term data on using puberty blockers on children.
Yeah, this is so recent. Why would there be data? You know, it would take a very long time. You'd have to observe people over a lifetime to figure out what the results actually were. And of course, we haven't done that. We've only started really doing this in earnest in the past 10 years or so. So we just don't know.
We interviewed a detransitioner from Canada called Faith, and she didn't go through with all the surgery, but what she told us was never did any doctor or psychologist ever question her and make her think. Everyone was just go, 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 and supporting her and enforcing her until she got to a point and realized, I don't want to do this. I'm in all this pain and all this. And all she said was, I just needed love as a kid. I was just a lonely kid. I could get no attention from anyone. My family wasn't that great. And then suddenly I was getting attention because people were saying I was trans, and suddenly I was getting what I was missing. And that was just forced upon me. And she said I was just obsessed with that until I woke up just before surgery. She was going to have surgery and she didn't, you know.
You really took off through the Netherlands, and there's a really good documentary on Netflix or somewhere. I can't think what the protocol is, but it really took off through the Netherlands in the first instance, the puberty blocker thing. And the documentary plots the progress of a number of young women, and all of their bones, their spines are just shot to shit. Yeah. The first thing that happened was the bone crumbling. Like when we go to rallies, I was at the one in Brisbane recently, and I've been to others in Melbourne, and you watch some on the TV, you know, Kelly J. Keane or whatever. When you see the activists on the other side, so many of the women are on walking frames and walking sticks. They are very, very unwell because of what they're doing to their bodies through puberty blockers and testosterone. You know, it's undeniable that it is causing them very significant harm. So all of this pontificating by politicians and doing a review that's going to take till the middle of next year, you know, the health secretary is doing that, and the health minister is doing that at the moment. It's bleeding obvious that this is very problematic, and all of this cries about if we don't give them this stuff, they'll suicide themselves. It's just there's no data to back it up. I mean, Gillian Spencer was on TV the other night, and she's saying that when they stopped giving puberty blockers in the UK, there is no data to say that there's any change in suicide amongst the population. So there's a lot of very, very sort of quite sick myths that have been urban myths, or that have all sorts of throwaway lines and basically lies, I suppose you'd say, that the trans movement have come up with over the years. One is about, would you rather have a dead son or an alive daughter, that sort of thing. But there are many, many things that they say that are just throwaway strap lines. There is no scientific evidence. There's no basis to them. And it's largely about guilt tripping people and silencing people to get their own way. And that's the adults, not the children. It's a very top-down, authoritarian, a liberal movement.
Yeah. It's part of the agenda, destroying families, children being taken away from their parents if they dispute this.
We have met those people that if their child decides they're trans, if they question it, the child will be removed. And so parents live in fear of saying anything. It gives a young child who's maybe already troubled a power. Suddenly they've got a power, they've got attention, but they're still a child.
I read a very interesting article a few years ago, which was it was based in, I think it was a German article or German author, and basically the thrust of it was in the context of the military. In the military, if you declare that you've got any kind of mental illness that makes that you not grounded in reality, you're assessed and you're out, right? You just don't get to go on a battlefield or fly a helicopter or whatever it might be. And they were saying that this article, I'm just trying to remember the detail, but it was basically saying that this gender stuff is the only place in the military where you can say, yep, I'm a soldier. I've now decided, and this is a big thing in the military. Usually when they come out of the military, though, men, they've decided that they're trans. But when they do it inside the military, it's like, okay, that's no problem. You can have all the drugs, you can have all the surgeries, you can do this, that, and the other, and you can still carry on being a soldier. And the thrust of the article was, in no other context, no other part of the military would you ever find anything that's similar to that. So this is so pervasive and has made itself so accepted. It's even accepted in the military. And I mean, in fact, in the US, I think the Trump administration has clamped down on this, but in the US, you do get people going into the military so that they get surgery that they want paid for as a deliberate choice. So it's a very pervasive movement.
Belle, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I was just thinking, and there's the dual tragedy there to what Sarah is saying. You don't just have someone who's being affirmed when they shouldn't be and who is then going on to intrude on other people. You have someone who's probably not getting the help that they actually need.
That
would be the perfect opportunity to say, hey, that's sort of not, that's not quite the right way to think about yourself. Do you want some real help here? But they're not doing that. They're just affirming them and sending them on their way. It's really sad and negligent, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think social media, see someone who's lonely and maybe has never had attention, is craving it. Suddenly they say they're trans, and on social media, suddenly they're getting likes, people are following them, egging them on. Suddenly they're like in a script. And in order to keep the script going, to keep this attention, you have to do the journey. And then once they finally transition, everyone's going, well, your journey's over now. And these people are left, and suddenly they're going back to being lonely, except now they've gone through all this surgery and wherever they've gone. And the suicides that they don't talk about, the most suicides happen after they've transitioned. I've written about this. They're the ones, not before, after. And look, you're in about, I think Sarah's in her 50s. We're in our 50s, or I'm older than that now. We grew up with trans people around. I mean, apart from Dan LaRue used to be on mainstream TV and we'd all sit there and watch it. I was working in Tasmania when I was 24 years old. So yonks back. Tasmania used to have a law against homosexuality. I don't know if they ever enforced it, but they had the law. I worked at the Rest Point Casino, and the Rest Point Casino had a trans person on the front desk meeting people in the afternoon. So there was nothing against it. People would just be interested, like, oh, I wonder what's happening downstairs, just human nature. But I used to see in the staff room, no one cared. And then I was a tram driver. We had another one join us. No one cared. Everyone was like, oh, well, you know, we're pretty easygoing. So this whole
people
thing
don't
that there's
really
a
care how
genocide
people
is
just
a lie.
express themselves. It's that's not a problem.
Yeah.
And it's the infertility issues as well, you know, the ongoing basically having to be on pharmaceutical medications for the rest of your life. And I just think of the children who are in school now who are extremely confused. And
And how do you negotiate consent from a child who doesn't even understand what it is that they might be missing out on in the future? How can you call that informed consent as a doctor? I just don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah. This is where they use the term mature minor, but a mature minor is someone my age who hates Rio Tinto, but still a FIFO. That's a mature minor. And you know, this whole thing, a 12-year-old can't have a tattoo, can't smoke, can't drink alcohol, but they can change their body, or they can start to. It's. I'd say it's even evil. I just think it's because the child doesn't know. The child is just craving purpose, identity, belonging,
love,
acceptance.
It's
It's extraordinary.
Well, the media in this country, like in all of the Western countries where this has all taken root, is also a problem. And the ABC is just a joke. They just do puff pieces on trans women, drag queens, and then they've got this ridiculous Instagram profile called ABC Queer. And you know, what do they call it? Carousel. One thing they took down. They were glorifying this young woman who'd had a double mastectomy, and there was a photo of her in a bathroom in the mirror. I think they got so many complaints they did actually take that one down.
That's what the scar.
Oh, good.
They're just pushing and pushing and pushing. Yeah, they're just pushing this stuff. You know, so the ABC, you give them an opportunity to do a story about a trans woman or a drag queen, and they'll take it every time. They don't actually do any proper news about anything else. I had to work really hard to get an op-ed that Lesbian Action Group put together into the ABC. I mean, Sal Grover tried for 3 weeks with a guy called Scott Stevens in the research and ethics section, and they ultimately turned her down and said that she didn't meet the standards and she had inaccuracies about the SDA, and almost sort of saying she had inaccuracies about her own legal case, which is just perverse. So then I had a crack, and I did get the op-ed published, but it was, and that was quite a big deal, really. I mean, it was, and we got them to come to the court case when our appeal was heard in April. But they do it very reluctantly, and I think it's only because some of the senators at Estimates have called them out on bias. I wrote directly to Hugh Marks at the ABC and said, come out of ACON. That was one thing. Second thing, said, how about you covering something that we've got to say at some point? And I mean, that panned out for whatever reason, but they don't willingly knock on the door and cover stories about Lesbian Action Group, Women's Rights Network, Women's Forum, Sal Grover, Kiralee. They still got their head in the sand. They're still looking the other way. They're still pretending this isn't happening. And, you know, there'll be another round of estimates in October, and no doubt they'll get called out about it again. And Hugh Marks will sit there and deny that they're biased. And of course they are biased. I mean, even to the extent they're just wasting our money, and they've got an army of these really young, progressive, woke journalists, you know, early 20s kids, basically. There was one the other day, she called herself a national business reporter. It was a pointless story that my dog could have written about a trans woman getting driving insurance or some nonsense. It's not news. Why are you being paid to do that? What's that got to do with anything? You know, so it is just beyond the pale, the stuff that they publish and call it news, and then turn up at Estimates denying that they aren't biased to people with views like myself and Belle and Sal and others. You know, it's extraordinary.
I interviewed a trans who become a woman in a become a woman, but there's in Queensland, but they were in Victoria in the harsh lockdowns when you couldn't get an operation. So if your grandmother's hip was gone, you have to wait it out. Everything. They were allowed to do the transitioning, get all paid for, in the harshest part, when the harshest lockdown, when no one else could get surgeries.
Well,
and they actually talked about that in the interview, like they were stunned by it, but they did it.
There was a team.
I'm just. It's like there's like they're creating a privileged class that has power and is protected, and you can't say shit against them, and we just have these issues: toilets, sports, and leave the kids alone. That's it.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. Young girls. So I just to finish that point. There's a teenager flown from Melbourne to New South Wales for surgery during the lockdowns. It's well known that happened. Sorry, Bill.
I was going to say on the privileged class point, I mean, especially when men and women as a class, they don't have any functioning definition in Australian law. So the only people who are sort of clear in the eyes of the law are trans people. And so if you're the only person who has a proper definition, then you're the only person who has a proper set of needs and risks associated with you. Nobody else does. So of course you're going to win out in every single, incidence of, balancing rights, that is exactly what is happening. We have a privileged class of people because they're the only class of people who have any real sort of definition.
And the way that rang true, so the judge that upheld our appeal to be able to go back to a tribunal to fight the refusal of our exemption, Justice Mark Mashinsky, he said that the tribunal had given decisive weight to the harm that would be caused to the people being excluded, not coming to the lesbian party. And he said that's a no-no. There is no hierarchy of human rights in the Sex Discrimination Act, which is why it's called the guidelines that they've been using since 2009 deficient. So he said they've given decisive weight, therefore preference, to the people that wouldn't be able to come to lesbian events over all the lesbians who apparently don't have any human rights.
We have a lesbian here. From a lesbian lens, could you please... Oh, do you want to finish, Belle, and then we'll ask this question?
Oh, no, go ahead.
From a lesbian lens, could you please give us your take on the plus in the LGB? Well, it's much longer now. It's almost its own alphabet. So what is your thoughts on that? I'll show that. I'll send that to Sarah.
The plus, I mean, look, when I was in my 20s, for about 5 minutes, when I was a student, we started to call ourselves queer because it was this fun, little new thing. It was a bit American, Now queer means something completely different. The trans thing, a bit like you, I suppose, Michael. There were trans people on the periphery of the gay scene here and there in my 20s, 30s, but in my 40s. Now it's just completely changed. Like it's just become like a truck, and these are straight men wearing certain clothes coming into all sorts of gay spaces and lesbian spaces, underground techno clubs and things like that. They're not trans, they're not gay, they're straight men in lingerie, right? We don't want them
only 12% have the operation. So the stats say only 12% actually go through the operation. So the rest will have all their gear. So they're lesbians with dicks. We live in a world where lesbians have dicks. I mean, sorry to be rude, but we live in that world.
They're men.
They're men.
They call it real dick. So look, I don't know what you mean by plus being. I think years ago there used to be a gay scene. You'd go to certain bars, you'd only see largely gay people in there. You might go in you might take a straight friend or whatever, but there were places that were created as little havens, and that's where you'd meet partners, or you meet friends, and you'd party and all that. So that's just kind of been blown away to a certain extent. I mean, gay men still have a lot of spaces, and they party harder and more and all that kind of thing. But I don't think there is I don't even like the acronym. I just refuse to be associated with LGB, blah, blah, blah. I'm just a lesbian. I'm a normal person, a working, sensible, successful person, I'm kind, I'm switched on. I don't want anything to do with anything that's cult-like. I'm just an ordinary lesbian. But the LGBT blah blah acronym. One of the things I really like to, I've spoken to some politicians. I mean, it's impossible to do this, but I want them to stop using the acronym. If you're talking about gays and lesbians, call us gays and lesbians. If you're talking about the other stuff, then be clear what you're talking about, but stop lumping us in together. It's offensive.
Yes. How do we turn this around, Belle?
So there's a couple of ways, I think, to skin a cat. In Australia, because we have the sex discrimination law and then federal law, and that sort of takes precedence over all the state laws. The best way, and what we're angling for, is to get the Australian government, put them under enough pressure to get them to just change the Sex Discrimination Act, put back in definitions of man and woman, which were removed in 2013. And hopefully, once that's done, we will have some trickle down, and that will have an effect where you get a differentiation between men and women in law, which is what we need to have functioning laws. That might, these things do get complicated, and I don't want to tie us down to any one way of doing things, but I think that is the most likely way. And I would encourage people, if anything, if you're going to ask your politicians for anything, say, I want that Sex Discrimination Act change. I want definitions of men and women in law, functioning definitions that reference preferably our biology.
Yeah, let's talk about biology, because we never had to think about this before, because I grew up, no one ever said, what's a woman? You go, what are you talking about? It was like a ridiculous question. But now I think the insult to all of you women is not only you're born, but your body changes more than a man's body. You have to go through periods. You have the ability to bring new children into the world. Every one you see on the world, every human being that exists now formed in a woman. I mean, that might change because the Chinese are getting false wombs, but at the moment, we all formed in a woman. Mm-hmm. So it's like an insult to your mother to go, what's a woman? Yeah. You come from a mother. And then you go through menopause. And then I learned recently, this was incredible, that it was a scientist saying, do you know why women go through menopause? Because nature decided that mature women have a much greater role than actually continuing to give birth. And that is to actually train younger women to give birth, because it's so difficult. Now, I'm not knowing that's happening, but they reckon that's what nature does. Yeah. So they go through all these changes, and they usually they're the main bringer up of the children, usually, not all the time, but usually they are. And once they've finished that, they usually don't have an income. They're way behind on, by the kids are 20, they're going back to the workforce. They've got to rebuild their career. Sometimes their marriages fall apart and suddenly they're single and they're starting a new life with nothing. They go through all of this. And to me, that's why it's insulting that we have a world now where I can go pay $78 and get a form and say I'm a woman. That is insulting to the core depth of humanity itself. Yeah. And I would tell you, I would truly believe that the majority of men think like me. Mm-hmm. They really do. It's a minority that is controlling us at the moment, that is being funded by our government, or even money behind that. There is some cultural attack here that some people are benefiting from and are pushing it. But look at us. We're having this interview here. We're in the bush in an old bus. There's not very little funding coming from us. I'd say you guys got very little funding, and we're up against $1 trillion propaganda machine that's trying to change everything around us to get us to accept to be basically silent slaves. And I think we have an obligation to the next generation to say, no, if you're born a lesbian or gay, you have the right to find out for yourself. And we should stay out of the children's youth when it comes to sexuality as much as we can, so they have the delight of being a child as long as they can, and then they can discover for themselves which way they swing. That's their journey, not ours. Yeah.
This is a fake human rights crisis and a fake human rights. It's totally fake. But of course, these things get kind of born in places like the UN, and then they trickle out across nations, and then funding gets behind it, and you get activist groups. So we've got many groups that are extremely well funded, and then you've got politicians who've realized that this is a really good grift as well. This is a good thing for them to latch on to. And they've brought in laws, Alex Greenwich here in New South Wales brought in the equality law, which means you can pay 70 odd bucks, and tomorrow afternoon you can be a woman if you choose so, Michael. And they've done it under the guise of this being some, necessary human rights push. It is beyond the pale. I sometimes think about the mothers, to go back to the point about mothers. Sometimes when I see some of the, the worst of these men and the things they get up to and all the kind of stuff that you wish you hadn't seen on X sometimes, I think, what must their mothers think? Like their mothers gave birth to a little baby boy. Yeah. They brought them up. They were probably, fairly nice, decent human being. Boy went through puberty, whatever else. And now they are rabid trans activists doing bizarre things to themselves, saying and writing bizarre, horrible things about women, turning up at protests with, kill turf sign and all this sort of stuff. I sometimes think, what do their mothers think? Because their mothers knew they gave birth to a boy. They know they haven't got a daughter. And I'm talking about the sort of older mothers with grown-up sons, not the ones with the kids, the trans housing by proxy ones who want to have a trans kid because they'll get them a nice TikTok following. That's a different topic. But the ones who, say a woman in their 60s or whatever, you've got a grown-up son behaving like this, being misogynistic, demanding access to all sorts of places, it won't take no for an answer about any women's boundaries. I just sometimes think, God, they just must be mortified if they are aware of what these sons are doing, and the fathers as well, but particularly the mothers, when these men are denying biology and claiming that they are a woman. No, you're not. You came out of a woman, and the woman that you came out of knows full well that she gave birth to a son.
Yeah. It's bizarre. Did you want to say something, Belle?
It's a very vocal minority that we've got here. I will say that the good news is, while we had Sal Grover's case going on and the initial case and then the appeal, I get the impression that a lot of people were just watching that and waiting and hoping that the judiciary would say something reasonable, and hopefully then it would all be over. Yeah. And then unfortunately that wasn't the case. But since then, since the end of that case, I know that we have at WRNA had such an influx of more and more women contacting us and saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. Hey, can I help out? So there's a very large majority of people who are watching and are willing to get involved and feel very strongly about this. So, I mean, I take comfort in that, and I think we all should.
So it's going to come from the change is going to come from the bottom up. It's going to be like a grassroots movement where the politicians realize if we push this, they're going to vote us out at the next election.
Yes. Yes.
And that's how we change it. We get a politician go, you keep backing this, then say goodbye to your seat.
Yeah. People are just fed up.
Harbour thinks it's a culture war, which is the most condescending thing ever, as if this is just, something that happens on X where people are having little spats about this. This is real life, real world problems.
Yeah, that's right.
In our own country, in law, and he's just not willing to play ball. So I think he'll get crucified over this at the next election, to be honest.
Yeah. Women not feeling safe in their own lives, or when they go and play sport, or when they try and go to the bathroom. I mean, that's not a culture war. That's not nothing. So it is, like you say, it's so insulting when he tries to dismiss it in that manner.
Yeah. And so many young women are suffering issues now, self-worth, and anorexia is at epidemic levels. No one talks about that. And the self-worth issues are so bad. It has to be safe that they go in there. It's hard enough if they've got a period or something that they're dealing with girls listening, but to have some big fella in there, it's obscene. And there's disabled toilets. Use those. There's simple solutions everywhere.
Oh yeah, and
us blokes, we don't talk to you anyway. You come in and you're trans, we don't give a shit. We don't talk. We don't communicate in toilets. We go in, we get out. You know what I mean?
Well, what you just pointed to there was a compromise. I mean, imagine if 10 years ago these guys had started advocating for their own spaces. Could we have a third extra space? But they've never done that, and that tells you a lot about what it is that they're after.
Yeah. No, I think it's the time to defend our women. I really do. And I think most men in Australia, if they were allowed to speak, and we're not allowed to speak anymore, people are terrified to speak. Even this is coming under fire and censorship. We had a Facebook page. They gave us a 10-year ban because we're speaking openly, talking to ordinary Australians what they think. They're trying. There is a cultural attack that way upon us, and it's a time for us to fight and define who we are as Australians, what our value system is, and we're a good people. We're empathetic. We're caring. At our foundation, we're a good people. Something's lost at the moment because the upper echelon is either bonkers or they're up to something, and it's nefarious. You know.
Yeah.
Should we talk about a little bit? It's a shame that you're over.
We should talk about the march. We're here for the march. We'll get the march.
We can't march in Sydney. The logistics are a bit tricky, so I'm a bit jealous that you had a march over in Perth. But there's a rally, so I'll let Belle talk about what that looks like.
Yes, so Women's Right Network is hosting a rally this coming Sunday. It's the 23rd of August. It's going to be at 12 p.m. at the Martin Place Amphitheatre in Sydney, and everybody is welcome to come along. And we've got a couple of great speakers lined up. We've got Sal Grover, who your listeners are probably familiar with. Also people like Kira Lee Smith. We've got Sarah as well is going to be there. Clive Hamilton, Anna Kerr, people like that. It's going to be a really great and important day. And we're always just pushing to get more people to speak out and get people to acknowledge, like make it common knowledge that everybody, really the majority is on our side, and that most people are on the side of common sense, and we're sick and tired of this, and we're here, we're speaking, and you've got to listen to us at some point. So yeah, come along on Sunday, please, if you're in the Sydney area.
Yeah, I'd urge guys to go along. Just go along. It's support our community, support our women, support our mothers,
men, women,
our wives, our partners, our lesbian mates. I mean, you know, we work with them, the lesbian mates, and support our daughters. You know, this is it. This is absolutely wrong. We all know it. And the thing is, too, I'm not saying that all trans things will go and sort of like that, but there is dodgy guys, and they will use this as a ticket to access women's spaces, and that's just reality. So go there. We have to protect our women. Otherwise, who are we as a society?
Yeah.
Who are we?
It's extraordinary.
Back to common sense. Sorry, guys.
So I was just going to say there's the 7 speakers named on the screen there. So Sal's in litigation, as we all know, taken to court when she was 8 months pregnant. She's had the full force of Equality Australia, Australian Human Rights Commission, everything thrown at her, and is waiting to find out whether she's got leave to appeal in the High Court in the next few weeks. Clive Hamilton, he's not in litigation, but who else is there? Let me just go down the list.
Kira Lee Smith will be there. I think she's just come out of some difficult litigation.
She's just lost her appeal and has to pay $95,000 to 2 males playing in a soccer team. Jasmine is in litigation around the male trying to breastfeed topic, and of course Lesbian Action Group's also in litigation. They tried to bankrupt, the Australian Human Rights Commission tried to bankrupt a small group, a not-for-profit group that exists purely for the well-being of lesbians it was in Victoria, really. And they lied at Senate estimates and said they didn't try to claim costs. They did. And I'll be making that very clear in my speech on Sunday. And we need them to correct the record at estimates, because they did claim costs. I mean, the documents in the public domain. So trying to bankrupt an organisation of volunteers when they get $40 million a year at the AHRC is just unconscionable. This is what we're up against.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got 7 speakers there on the screen. As I say, I think, you know, 4 women, obviously, in litigation against the state for saying no, basically. And so that's the other thing, I think. When did women, when you know, we were taught growing up, no means no for women, and now doesn't mean anything.
No.
No, it means this. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Belle, before we wrap it up?
No, just please, if you're in the Sydney area, please come along on Sunday. We would love to have you all. Everybody is welcome. We'd just love to see people who have, basic common sense and some rationality, and we can all meet each other and have a good chat. Hear some really good speakers. We'd love you to come along.
It's worth just saying it will be live streamed. So the Women's Rights Network Australia has a YouTube channel. So you can find that.
We could hop on that. We could hop on that and live. We'll copy that too and share it. Yeah, if you can send us the link, awesome. We'll share that through our community as well.
Yes, sure. So yeah, it'll be live streamed. I think, is it going for an hour or 2 hours, Belle? I can't remember.
We're going to play it by ear because we might have some community voices come in at the end. So we're thinking probably about 2 hours, but we'll see how it goes on the day because there might be a huge amount of people who want to speak. So we're going to try and accommodate what we can.
So after the list of programmed speakers, what they've organised, which I think is great, and it was a little bit, and I kind of wish they'd done it in the other rallies, but for this one they've done this. That it will just be an open mic to women, mostly women, I suppose, in the audience. Like the Kelly J. Keane style. It'll be like, right, okay, who wants to say something? Who wants to tell a story or whatever it might be? So it could be really great. We might hear some very different stories from just ordinary members of the public who are sick of this and suffering in some way or got something that they want to share. So it could be a really great rally, actually.
Should we go out with a really beautiful lesbian story? When I came to Melbourne to try and make it as a playwright, the easiest job to get was working in nursing homes. So I'd do that on the weekend and I'd write all week. And I was in this one crappy nursing home. And there was a lesbian couple there, and they called them sisters, but they were lesbians. That's what they used to do in that era. And one of them had full-on dementia, and the other one passed away. And the one with dementia, she was just this old thing, used to walk around always happy. She was so demented that she didn't know her partner had died. Oh. And so what they did, I know that sounds sad, but what they did, the nursing home was full of these old women. They had no visitors, had dementia, were bedridden, no one came. They used to put them in the bed where the partner had been. And so these women who had no one left, there's about 3 of them died under the care of this beautiful lesbian who thought they were her partner.
Oh, wow.
And that's how they left. I always thought it'd be a beautiful film or something. And eventually she died too, but they put them in there. And I don't even think it was a sexual thing. It was just love and caring. They were past that age. Yeah. But comfort and human touch. It gives me goosebumps now. I remember at the time thinking, this is so beautiful.
Yeah,
and
it is.
No one cared. As a society, we thought, let them be. Who cares? They're lonely. They're here. And so that's what I'm saying. At our heart, we're a good people, but they're laminating bullshit morality, false morality over us, or they're trying to, and that's what we have to rally against. So I urge you, go to the rally, just turn up, just be there, defend our women, defend their rights. It's a worthy cause. Yeah,
that's lovely. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you both.
No worries.
All right. Okay. Thanks both.
A song called "The Lowly Ballerina." This was written to my daughter, and the thing is, up ahead and just out of view, the world is waiting for you. And it's a song, we've put it with this demented woman who used to be a ballerina. And anyway, you'll see it for yourself. But this is a homage to the beauty of women from an old man's perspective. Don't read that the wrong way. Okay. See you guys. Bye.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Things change, things do up ahead. The story you're writing isn't written yet. This evening is only a paint. In the morning, your writer will begin again.
drink you breathe is never dry, and you won't predict your course, no matter how hard you try.
And while there will be more frustration and pain,
There will also be joy, fortune, and love.
up ahead and just out of view, the world is waiting for you. The world is waiting for you.
Up ahead and just out of view,
The world is waiting for you. The world is waiting for you.
so let me be your cure. I'll push your fears aside. Together we could find your answers.
And when it gets too dark, so dark we just can't hide, we let love, we will let love, oh, we will let love be our
Up ahead
and just out of view.
up ahead.
I promise you, and just out of view,
The world is
waiting for you. The world is waiting for you.
Just before we go, we got Wollstonecroft on tomorrow, so prepare yourselves. Wollstonecroft is gone. You did great.
Thanks, babe.
Okay. Thanks to the ladies for coming on, and please get to the Sydney March if you're in Sydney and you can. Take care.